Hello students, so today we're going to learn how to add integers using number lines. So maybe you know how to add integers but you have not learned how to add them using a number line, so that's what we're going to learn today. So please make sure that if you're watching this video is because you're completing the skill for the week, which is A63. So that's the skill we're going to do today, A63. So here we go. If we want to add two integers, so first of all, we are adding them. So that's the first thing. So every time that you add them, you are going to have a plus sign between them, as you can see on this example right here. So every time you add them, you're going to have a plus sign. And I'm being specific on this because on the next skill, the one that you're going to do tomorrow, and that one you're going to be subtracting. So between the two integers, integer can be any positive or negative number. So between the two integers, you're going to have a negative sign for tomorrow and a positive sign for this lesson, because we're adding on this one and tomorrow we'll be subtracting. So if we want to add or subtract, there's one thing that we need to remember all the time when we work with number lines, and that first thing is that if we move from any number, any point in our number line, but every time we move to the left, we're actually subtracting something, and every time we're moving to the right, we're actually adding something, right? That's what we need to remember. That's for every single number line. So look, I'm gonna do this one here. So it's telling me that I need to add -8. That's the first thing. So that means I need to start on -8. And as you can see, they both start at -8, right? So that's not gonna be a problem. They both start at -8. Now they're telling me that I need to add a -2. The problem here is that if I were to use a positive, well, I know that if I have a positive and a negative sign, what would be this equal to? If you're not sure about that, well, you might remember this triangle. You learned this triangle a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, or maybe 6th grade, when you have something like this. And if you want to know what is plus and negative when you put them together, well, the only thing you need to do is cross out. You have a positive, so I cross out the positive. You have a negative, so I cross out the negative. The one that you have left, that would be your answer, which is a negative. So that means that a positive and a negative gives you a negative. So because it's a negative, I cannot go to the right. I need to go to the left. So that's why in here, if I go -8, it would be -8 plus -2. That would be 1, 2. So that's the -2 right there. And my answer would be the number where I land, which is -10. So my answer here would be -10. My answer cannot be -6, as you can see on the other number line, because we know that -2 plus -8 plus -2 is not -6. That's why the first number line is not correct. Now I'm going to check if that's true. They're going to ask you, number 1, to pick the number line, and number 2, to make sure that you type the correct answer. So if you only type the correct answer but you don't pick the correct number line, then it's going to be wrong. Okay, so there you go. Now I'm going to do like 3 or 4 more. Let's do this one here. First, consider what I just said right now, where I mentioned that every time that you go to the left, so if you go to the left, that is because you are subtracting something, and if you move to the right, that is because you are adding something, right? Now, how do I know if I'm adding or subtracting? Well, first of all, let's see if we know where to start. Okay, that's the very beginning, the very first thing you need to do. And you're gonna know how to start depending on the number they give you. In this case, they give me 8. So I start on 8, right? And actually both are starting on 8. Now this one it's easier because in this one they both are going to the same direction. Now if you guess why they both are going to the left instead of the right, even though they have an addition, is because I have a positive and a negative. And in the same way I did it for the other problem, every time that I have a positive and a negative, so if I cross out here the positive, the negative, the answer is negative. So if it's negative, that means I need to go to the left. And I need to go to the left 7 units, because that's what the problem is telling me to do. Go to the left 7 units. So if you count in here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number line 2 is the one that goes to the left 7 units and not number line 1. So because of this reason, that second number line is my answer, and the numerical value I would have when I add 8 plus -7 is 1. Now let's do this one here. So I would do exactly the same thing. Look where you are starting to add the numbers. Look what is the first value that you are adding. In this case, it's a -1. So if I'm starting at -1, it would be somewhere here or here, right? So that's where I start. Now look at this problem. This problem is even easier because I know I'm starting at -1, not my answer is -1. So look how this arrow here is pointing to the -1. That means it's telling you that your answer is -1, which is not actually true. So my answer is actually the second number line, and I'm going to show you why. I started on -1, and then I need to add a -2. So that means I do plus and negative, but I know that a plus and a negative, it's equal to a negative. So that means that I need to go to the left, because the left is for the negatives and the right is for the positive numbers. So if I go 2 units to the left, 1, 2, I land on -3, and that's why I would type here -3, and my answer would be the second number line. Okay, let's do this one. So on this problem here, it's the same thing. So check on where you start. What is the first number where you start? Yep, it is -7. So if you start on -7, that means that you need to add 5. Remember, if it's a positive, you go to the right. If it's a negative, you go to the left. That first number, it's always where you start. So I'm starting at -7, so I start here and here. Now I need to go to the right 5 because I have a positive 5. So if I do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my answer would be -2. The correct number line is the first one, and my answer here would be -2. Okay, let's get ahead a little bit to see what would you see on like on the 80s or something. Let's check that one. Let's do this one. Okay, so for this one, now they're actually asking you for you to write the equation for something like this. Now how can you do that? Well, if you think about it, the first number is always where you start, so wherever the arrow begins. So in this case, it begins right here, which is a -10. So the first number I will type here, it's -10. So let me type it. Now the next part can be a little bit confusing for you, but if it is, then let's try something first. I know that I start at -10, right? And I also know that my answer would be -19 because it's given right here. So my answer, which is equal to, it's -19. But now I need to check what is it that I'm doing. Should I write here negative something or positive something? Well, then you need to check where is your arrow going. If your arrow goes to the left, that means that that number you would type there is negative. If your arrow goes to the right, then that number that you type there, it would be positive. So if you think about it, this arrow is going to the left. So that's why the number, whatever number I'm going to write here, has to be a negative number because it's going to the left. Now, what is the number that I would type there? Well, I just count. In this case, I would just count how many numbers I'm jumping all the way to -19. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's a number I would put there. -9. Let's do this one as well. You gotta be careful because sometimes the number lines are not gonna go by ones, and that can be confusing too. So look at this one. Look how this number line goes by twos. So every little line counts by twos. So you also need to watch out for that. So like in this case here, I'm starting at -28, which is right there, -28. So I'm gonna type -28 because that's where I started, and that's where the arrow starts, right? That's where it starts. Like the little line starts there. Now I need to check. Well, I know that I started there because that's where it starts, the line. Now let's check where it ends, and the line ends right here, which is -12. So I don't know if I'm adding or subtracting something right now, but the only thing I know is that whatever I do to that, it's gonna give you -12. Now let's see what is it that we're doing. Now look how the arrow goes to the right. So if it's going to the right, that means I'm adding something, right? I'm adding something, and actually is right there. You have an addition. So if it's a positive, I'm not gonna type like I did on the other problem. It's not like I'm gonna type plus a number, because if you do something like this, even though it is, oops, sorry, even though it is something, oh, what is going on with this thing? Oh, let me just check because it's not. Oh, I know. Even though it's correct, like, you know, you are adding a positive number, we never do like plus plus, right? So that's why I'm not gonna type a symbol, but we know we're adding something. Now we need to see how many units are we adding. Now here's where you need to be careful, because I want that you check out how the units are going by twos. So if I just count like one, like if I just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I put 8 here, that's not gonna be correct. And it's not gonna be correct because each little line counts by twos. So basically you are doing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. So the answer would be a positive 16. One more time, I'm not gonna do a positive 16 because then the computer is gonna count it wrong. But just put a 16. We know that if it doesn't have a symbol, it's because it's positive. So make sure that you consider that. So I'm gonna click enter, and there you go. Okay, I'm gonna go back to, well, let me do this one, and then I'm gonna go back to like the 50s or something, because then you're gonna have trouble with those two. So I want that you check your number line on this one and check how the number line it's going now by, yes, by threes. So you need to consider that whenever you are counting the little lines, otherwise you're gonna get it wrong. So I'm gonna check where I start. So in this case, I'm starting at -9. So that means that my starting point would be -9. And I'm ending at -18. So that means that my ending point would be -18. Now, the arrow in this case, it's going to the left. So that means that I'm gonna be subtracting something. So it's going to the left. So if it's subtracting something, I will write minus here. Now I'm going to count how many units am I subtracting in this case. So in order to count the units, remember that it goes by threes. So it's not like 1, 2, and 3 and you put a -3 there. You have to make sure that you do 3, 3, and 3, because every line goes by 3. So if I do 3 plus 3, that's 6. And if I do 6 plus 3, that's 9. So basically it would be -9 here. -9, and let's check, and there you go. Now let's go back to the 50s, because I think some of you are gonna have problems with that. Let's do not that one, oops, not this one. Let me see. Well, it's the same thing. Look at this one here. I thought that it was going to be a little bit harder to do, but it's the same thing. Look how you start on 11 positive. So I start on 11 positive, 11 positive. Look at this. If you have a positive and a negative, that's equal to a negative. So that means that if it's negative, I need to go to the left. So that's why the second number line would be correct, because it's going to the left. Look how the first number line is not correct, because it's actually starting at the 12, and we are starting at 11 according to the number line here. So that's why my answer would be, well, first I will land, if I do -1, I will land on 10, because I just jumped 1, right? So it would be 10. And the second number line would be the one that is correct. So that's correct. And that's it. So make sure that you try your best on this one. It's pretty simple. Try to get 100. I mean, it's a 7th grade skill. You have been doing 6th grade skills, and this week we only have 3 skills. So invest time on this skill, because it's gonna help you later on. So see you on the next video. Bye.